of government and life. We need a new way of doing things that will give us new opportunities for our people to succeed. The current model has some broken parts. We need to change how business is done. On the campaign trail, we spoke independently, but once we formed the government, we came together to find that we essentially wanted many of the same better outcomes for the citizens of this country. People-driven, accountable, competent, transparent. These values, our guiding principles, have helped us align our objectives and shape policies, and help when it came time to make the tough decisions on resource allocations. Despite the wishful thinking of our critics, we are evolving into a team with a shared vision and a clear sense of purpose for our beloved Cayman Islands. Community creates country was my group's slogan on the campaign trail, and it underscores our philosophy. One cannot underestimate the impact that is made and the momentum that is created when individuals in their communities throughout the islands come together in their own neighborhoods, working to help their neighbors and care for their districts. These seemingly small acts and demonstrations of community spirit by separate groups all combine to create a strong, united country that is heavily invested in the well-being and future of all its citizens. There are thousands of people in this country who live on the edge of poverty, one household bill away from not having enough money to pay the mortgage or the rent or electricity bill. Many face mental health challenges, and there are hundreds of people, Caymanians, who live in substandard housing conditions with no chance of improving their situation because rents outpace their earnings. Across all ministries, we share a commitment to putting social development, the health and wellness of our society, and the ability for our people to develop their full potential at the center of our decision-making. Our vision for Cayman includes you as a business community, and we hope you will all join us as we commit to putting a sustainable community and country first. Each of us, whether industry, business, or individual, if each of us, whether industry, business, or individual, acts solely and consistently in our own narrow self-interest, then we will accelerate inequality, delay or derail our ability to thrive as a community, and in turn sabotage true sustainability between our people, our planet, and our prosperity. Good timing on the applause, thank you. It is no good for a select few to feast if the vast majority suffer famine. The climate crisis, increasing cost of fuel, the increasing traffic congestion, pressures of development on critical natural habitat, loss of indigenous flora and fauna. I'm sure, Jackie, that tree is an indigenous tree, right? Yeah. Perfect. Stony coral tissue loss disease and increased hurricane activity are all very real challenges that we face, all issues that we are finding solutions to address. If we're to make progress in achieving long-term development goals, we must address sustainable development. Climate change is not a standalone issue, and its inherent risks must be integrated into all aspects of development planning. We must begin with the recognition of our vulnerability and challenges, and yes, even opportunities for growth. To quote outgoing CARICOM Secretary General Erwin LaRocque, the Caribbean region is subject to a double vulnerability from external economic shocks and natural disasters. The islands of the Caribbean community see sustainable development as an urgent necessity rather than a politically correct slogan for the future. We must align our goals with CARICOM and the United Nations through a national sustainability and resilience action plan. My government and I believe that tackling sustainable development is the only real pathway to increased long-term prosperity. Investing in natural capital will increase efficiencies and contribute to our island's success. We will foster innovation, attract the right investment, and increase access to additional markets, including renewable energy and ecotourism. These are ways we can help diversify our economy. Through increased efficiencies, we can create self-sustaining wealth for the economy, the environment, and the social development for the people of our islands. We need to grow green, in short. I marvel at the way the private sector is leading the way on climate change, but a partnership with the government is required to make significant change. Paul Pullman, the former CEO of Unilever and founder of Imagine, says that alliances amongst businesses are growing. He chaired the board of the International Chamber of Commerce and noted in an interview last June that at that time, some 22 chapters of the Chamber were putting climate targets in place and signing up to initiatives ranging from gender balance and fighting discrimination and pledging to buy sustainably. He said, and I quote, "We cannot go on to operate in silos and expect to find answers. It gives us some improvement, but not at the scale and speed that we need. It is just incremental improvement, whereas what we now really need is a step change." I appreciate the efforts of our own Chamber of Commerce to focus attention on littering and its impact on the Cayman Islands environment, tourism product, and communities. So with climate change uppermost in my mind, my government supported me in establishing a Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency, which includes responsibility for revising the National Development Plan. I believe this is long overdue, and I promise you that it will be one of the key focuses of my administration. Development is a driver of our domestic economy, and I know we were all relieved when construction was able to begin again as COVID restrictions were lifted. Before I go further, I want to make it abundantly clear that despite the chorus from critics, neither I nor my government are averse to or enemies of development. Quite the contrary. We simply have to achieve the right balance. We need to reimagine how we do things. We must encourage and promote good stewardship of our natural resources and environment, and the use of well-thought-out design and materials that benefit everyone. We know that we need to invest in infrastructure and affordable housing and address the concerns of young Caymanians in relation to the cost of home ownership, which is fast, from their perspective, becoming beyond their reach. We're also aware of some of the very real concerns of many in the construction industry, especially as they relate to rising costs and limited access to materials. We too feel the pressures of the global trade war between China and the United States, but in many cases, production and supply chains have been impacted by the pandemic. We are carefully looking at ways to ensure that the cost of construction materials could come down, and we're reviewing duties and incentives for sustainable and client-conscious developments. You will have seen that we have appointed a new Central Planning Authority. I thank the outgoing members of the CPA for their service. I also thank the new chairman, Ian Pardue, and the new CPA members for putting themselves forward for national service. It is by no means an easy job. In the same way that the National Conservation Council meetings are held in public, we want to see CPA meetings also be made public unless there are very good reasons not to do so, having to do with data protection or commercially sensitive material. We believe that demystifying the work of the CPA will be to everyone's benefit. One surprising finding when we took office was the absence of data to help inform decision-making. Data is central to our vision. We have found that our country operates with a remarkable lack of data critical to decision-making across all three pillars of sustainability: the economy, the society, and the environment. Simply put, better data means better decisions and thereby better outcomes. As business people and industry leaders, you appreciate the strategic importance of data to manage performance and inform decision-making. This weakness in government is one that our elected officials and civil servants are working to rectify. But here again, we need your help in gathering up-to-date and factual information. Part of that information sharing will come in October, when we embark on Census 2021. As you know, the census was put on hold last year because of COVID. I am grateful that our successful handling of the pandemic is allowing us to proceed with the census this year. The success of Census 2021 requires the successful completion of the census process, and Census 2021 can only truly be successful if the results are credible and accurate. Your participation is therefore essential and will help ensure that we have accurate and complete information to inform our national decisions. Our vision also requires that we be reasonable, respectful, and balanced. Can and must learn from other countries where irrational polarization, dogmatic entrenchment tears apart families and communities. The recent terrible example of what happened in Haiti must be confined to history and never to be repeated. We must be able to have differing opinions without attacking and eroding the characters of each other. We must be willing to listen to each other and truly seek to understand the opposing view. One of Cayman's greatest strengths is its diversity and our ability to coexist peacefully. It is healthy and normal for us to have differing views and opinions, but we must continue to undergird our interactions with respect for each other. Finally, an important plank in our quest for excellence is good governance. In casting their votes in April, our people demanded good governance, accountability, and transparency. That is what we've pledged to bring to our roles as elected representatives and leaders. We ask that our fellow leaders in the business community also pledge to practice good governance. In working together, we can see the Cayman Islands become the benchmark for excellence in governance. So just what does good governance look like for the private and public sectors? I'll start with my side. We believe that the people you elect to lead our country need to be held accountable. As Thomas Jefferson said, when a man assumes a public trust, he should consider himself a public property. That is a premise in which I strongly agree, and as such, we will soon be making public manuals and codes of conduct for both the Cabinet and the Parliament. I took responsibility in administration of 2013 to 17 to rewrite the 1995 Guide to Operations of the Executive Council, which is no longer germane, but it didn't have the support to get adopted at that time. The new version will be a reflection of my government's mission and vision. And as I said, these documents will be published for perusal by the wider community. To me, this is a serious matter, and it's a serious part of adhering to good governance and being transparent. People outside the Cabinet don't know what Cabinet deals with. They don't understand the standards. And this helps build a framework of the conduct they can expect from us and that we expect of ourselves. The more we can be accountable to the public, the better we are at transparency. The better we are at transparency, the better we will get at decision-making and resource allocation. Other governments have talked about transparency, but we can demonstrate it. We can move forward and make significant inroads in dissolving public mistrust and speculation about what happens in government. We must conduct ourselves honourably. I expect both my colleagues and you all to hold us to that. There is more that we can do. One of the things that has always bothered me about the makeup of government committees, national boards, tribunals, commissions, and other public bodies is a lack of diversity. I am glad that I am now in a position to do something about it across the board, as it is now our policy to ensure all people are represented in these groups, including women, older persons, youth, and those who are differently abled. This shows that all people across the country are represented and that diverse views are reflected as well. Many of you in the private sector are already good at doing this. As for good governance in the private sector, I'm encouraged that there are a number of businesses that I've seen and industries which have already begun to reflect this, including environmental, social, and governance criteria in their operations. Environmental criteria consider how a company performs as a steward of nature, while social criteria examines how it manages relationships with employees, suppliers, customers, and the communities where it operates. Governance, of course, deals with the company's leadership, executive, pay, audits, internal controls, and shareholders' rights. I had an enlightening meeting recently with members of the Cayman Islands Institute of Professional Accountants on this subject, and I think their approach represents exceptional work, so I congratulate their approach and their actions. Merely doing what is permissible under the law does not necessarily mean it's the best or the right thing to do. ESGs are an excellent place to begin when considering incorporating good governance principles in the private sector. I believe that we as a government should consider how to further support those businesses that continue to set the bar when it comes to being good corporate citizens, that support Caymanian advancement, and that are truly invested in Cayman's long-term success. Working towards our vision, in our first 3 months in office, we have focused on reviewing existing COVID-related regulations and programs to either extend or amend them as needed. We have extended programs that provide essential relief for our people who have been the most negatively impacted by the pandemic. The pension holiday was extended, as were the tourism stipend, tourism workers stipend, and the health insurance continuation program. These efforts continue essential support to those without jobs until our economy reopens and provides relief to businesses grappling with reduced revenues. Beyond review and re-implementation of COVID-related programs, the PAC government has focused on the day-to-day running of the government and attention to core public sector activities, while simultaneously developing the Strategic Policy Statement, or SPS, for the next 3 years, as well as crafting key strategic policies for this administration. Specific examples of core government activities include the launch of the National Census, and we introduced partnership regulations regarding economic substance to avoid being included in the EU's list of non-cooperative countries for tax purposes, the continuation of national road infrastructure improvements, the addition of new National Weather Service observation stations, and ongoing work and public consultation to remediate and cap the Georgetown landfill. And we're making the Coast Guard a reality as well by producing a bill to formally establish the territory's first Coast Guard, and that bill will go to Parliament shortly, where it is government's intention of having the proposal enacted later this year. No reflection of the past 16 months would be complete without an acknowledgement of the importance of financial services to this jurisdiction. Your ability to remain open for global business during the height of the lockdown while having employees working from home played a key role in keeping this economy going. Without hesitation, you too created and innovated, supported your employees, and I believe many of you learned that staff who work from home can be just as creative and productive, if not more so, than being in the office. Your financial performance and government's coffers reflect that. My government recognizes the essential role of financial services to our economy. Now more than ever, we will seek to support, promote, and defend the industry as the lists of threats and challenges continue to grow. It is why the Cayman Islands has joined with 129 other countries and jurisdictions considered by the OECD to represent more than 90% of global GDP in the G20 OECD consensus for a framework for reform of international tax rules. The new two-pillar plan is directed at international corporate taxation rules to ensure that large multinational enterprises pay their share of tax wherever they operate. And that aligns with Cayman's long-held position that taxes should be paid where they are rightfully owed. What set financial services and many of your businesses on a sustainable path during the peak of the pandemic was the ability to provide services digitally. Being digital by default remains a critical aim of this government as well. Information and communications technologies are changing how the public sector provides services to residents, visitors, and businesses in the Cayman Islands. E-government is helping us cut costs, boost efficiency, and improve customer experience. We are replacing the Poor Persons Relief Law with modern financial assistance legislation, and the new Ministry of Investment, Innovation, and Social Development is moving forward with the National ID Program, which will transform the way in which you conduct business with government. This should roll out later or in the early part of next year. We also recognize that the increase in digital and online business means an entirely new set of challenges for our Royal Cayman Islands Police Service. Crime has also gone digital, and so the police services continually wrapping up its cybercrime resources. We vow to lend our full support to the police to ensure that Cayman remains a strong, safe, and desirable place to live and conduct business. A strong economy must be underpinned by safety and consumer confidence. So I wish to acknowledge the police service for being innovative and moving with the times. The success of businesses in the Cayman Islands means the success of government and our economy. That success gives businesses an opportunity to create jobs for our people, and it gives our people an opportunity to contribute to the economic well-being of the country. On economic matters, my government has reviewed and reforecasted government's current and projected financial position. We can't accurately plan for the future if we don't know what the cost of our actions or inaction are. As I expressed thanks to the Deputy Premier and his team for our updated forecast, I think everyone in this room is thankful to the Caymanians and residents of these islands who have kept our economy going by supporting local businesses. I know many businesses would not have survived without citizens shopping locally, taking staycations, eating out, supporting charitable events, and deliberately investing in our economy. Next week, we will table the 2022-2024 Strategic Policy Statement in Parliament. That document provides medium-term economic and financial forecasts for government for the next 3 financial years, covering the period from 1st January 2022 to 31st December 2024, along with government's broad strategic outcomes, which will guide the development and implementation of government's policy during this period. The SPS demonstrates my government's continued commitment to managing public finances responsibly. On the heels of that, my government will produce its first budget. I've taken you through our work since coming into office to build a better, different Cayman where everyone can succeed. The first step in achieving our recovery and larger long-term goals for these islands must undoubtedly be the safe reopening of our borders and rebuilding of our economy. Key to Cayman's success story is a strong, robust, and diverse economy. We know that, and we understand that we cannot continue without unlocking our full economy. We also understand that we will need your help to get there, and we're asking that you work in partnership with us for the benefit of your businesses and these islands which we all call home. Everything that we do, everything that we propose is towards the betterment of the Cayman Islands as a whole. Just as the business community joined with the government in the suppression of the COVID-19 pandemic, we need you to join us in the rebuilding phase. As we prepare to reopen, let's continue to use this opportunity to build a better tourism industry and to better place Caymanians to populate this industry. Prepare Caymanians to populate this industry and place them. But first, we must reopen safely. And that has always been contingent on us following the science and trusting the medical advice. Let's be honest, many people had their doubts. The previous administration set out a lofty goal of burning out COVID in our community. And yes, I got the phone calls from many members of the community asking me to lend my voice to those opposed to the strict public health initiatives and measures taken. I refused to speak out because I supported the approach taken by the previous administration. But let me be clear, our government intends to reopen the economy to tourism in a safe, responsible, and careful way. And I thank all of those who have contributed to helping the work of government during the ongoing pandemic. My sincere gratitude goes out to all of our healthcare professionals and public health staff at the forefront of testing and vaccinations. Indeed, we all owe a debt of gratitude to the hundreds of public servants who have worked tirelessly during this pandemic to keep our islands going. Our well-being, community health, and safety is a direct result of their professionalism, commitment, and sacrifice. Early on in our battle with the pandemic, the Cayman Islands took a conscious approach to be guided by the science, and all our decisions have been made based on scientific data and recommendations from our healthcare experts. If we want to continue to enjoy the freedom of movement and safely reopen our economy, then these are two things that we will have to do. One, meet our vaccination target. And two, continually test and monitor the existence of variants of concern that, if you had watched closely around the world, have the potential to reverse gains and force communities back into lockdowns. I hope that we all realize how lucky and blessed we are in the Cayman Islands and how enormously grateful every man, woman, and child should be to the United Kingdom for providing us with the best vaccination that exists today for free. I first heard the expression of going from vaccination hesitancy to vaccination desperation in the context of India, where there was a massive surge of COVID infection. But during discussions recently with CARICOM heads of government this week, it truly struck me how relevant that is in our regional context. Because many of our neighbors, ladies and gentlemen, are struggling to obtain access to a vaccine supply. We have truly been blessed, and thanks to the support of Public Health England and advocacy from our Governor's Office, we have continued to improve our lab facilities and have now taken a major step forward by acquiring the capacity to conduct genome sequencing in the Cayman Islands. That is an absolute game changer and something that we should be exceedingly proud of achieving. One particular story I pause to highlight is that of a very talented and incredible young Caymanian on the cutting edge of science, whose work is playing a seminal role in leading our charge to safely reopen our borders. Mr. Jonathan Smelly had initially applied to be a medical intern in the emergency department at the government hospital, but his qualifications of a bachelor's in cell biology and 2 masters, one in medical genetics and genomics and the other in systems and synthetic biology, landed him in a forensic assistant role in March 2020, less than a week before hard lockdown was instituted. While working within the lab, he developed a proposal to start next-generation genome sequencing. While the genome sequencing project is focused specifically on sequencing the different strains of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, Mr. Smelly and his colleagues are actively working on implementing medical genetic testing to service the local population. And Jonathan is by no means the only Caymanian in the lab. Beverly Nunez, who started her career in forensics at the Health Services Authority in 2010 as a forensic analyst, advanced in her career and in 2019 became Cayman's first qualified female Caymanian forensic scientist. She is the acting forensic manager and quality manager for the department, where she leads the forensic staff, hires new staff members, and ensures that everything within the department runs smoothly. I'd like to also mention 2 other young Caymanian female laboratory technologists, Nisha Miller and Tanisha Gilbert, who both worked in the COVID lab. They performed the important tasks of preparing the COVID samples for PCR testing and conducting tests with the Gene Expert machine. We're deeply grateful to these experts, and I take this opportunity to highlight the significance of the growing field of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics to our young people. Imagine for a second where we would find ourselves today had these brilliant young Caymanians been discouraged from pursuing their passion for the sciences. Some skeptics would simply say the solution is easy. Just take out a few work permits. Well, that's not a solution. The point I wish to make for our partners in tourism and across all industries in Cayman is that if we can have a Caymanian like Jonathan Smelly conduct genome sequencing, then we must be able to find Caymanians who can manage hotels, food and beverage, or lead banks. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan and Beverly attained their great heights, not only by their own grit, that for sure, but not only by that. Not only by their own determination and diligence, but because their employer, the Health Services Authority, simply didn't take the easy route and pursue work permits. In fact, they supported their ongoing studies, and today, both employer and the employees have benefited. But more importantly, we as a country have benefited. This kind of successful partnership is what is critically needed in protecting the very tourism industry we also desperately wish to see reopened and restarted. I salute the Health Services Authority. I salute these amazing Caymanians. And I salute every company in Cayman, every business in Cayman, every business leader in Cayman that seeks to take that approach. Key to our economic success is maximizing Caymanian employment, both in tourism and across all sectors of our economy. We have the most opportune moment now as we begin to reopen